Hey, welcome everybody. Another chapter to Backyard Abundance, and this chapter is all about dialing in on drip irrigation. We want to go from a regular conventional garden hose that most people use with a sprinkler, which sprays and wastes a lot of water, much of which evaporates, much of which waters the weeds, and isn't very successful at nourishing the plants you really want to grow. We're going to conserve a lot of water, target the water right to the plants that we want to grow, and the way we're going to do that is transition from a garden hose to drip line, which every 30 centimeters or 12 inches has a dripper that releases 4 liters or about 1 gallon of water every hour. And that's going to be set up with parallel lines of this drip line in each of the garden beds. We've done all the hard, heavy work. Now we're getting to the fun stuff where there's not much more expense and we're just on the brink of planting seeds and starts and having our own truly awesome backyard or front yard abundance. So I'm going to take you through the steps and stages of setting up drip line irrigation so that you can see how to do it, master it at your own place, become basically the master of your domain on this project. It's really fun and invigorating to do. So stick around, stick with me. Here we go. We'll do it step by step. Okay, so for this half-inch drip line, that's what we're using, half-inch drip line, which has the drip line spouts every 30 centimeters or 12 inches. We're going to first of all start off with the garden hose that we've talked about. I got the garden hose adapter, and the female end, we're going to put it onto the pressure reducer. Pressure reducer at the other end is going to go to a solid, not drip line, but just solid line with no drips in it, and that's going to run to where your bed starts, and from there you're going to start attaching things. Now the attachments are always done with a simple tool and a coupling or a connector. You can see them here on the bench. There's the coupling or connector, and this is designed to go right on top of it like that when it's wrapped around a hose or whatever. And so we'll have different fittings. We'll have T fittings that are shaped like a T so that you can do a line off of that. We'll have fittings that just turn corners, 90-degree bends, like L's. And if you have a cut or a break in your hose, you need to extend it, you can just put an inline connector like that. In each case, you're just going to shove the hose up the ribs of the connector, and this will be on the hose already, and you'll just squeeze it tight, and it'll crimp it, and it won't leak. You'll have taps like this to turn each line on and off, just a simple on-off tap. So you'd have solid unperforated line coming in, and you'd have drip line coming off to run drip down the end. When you come to the end of the run on your garden bed, you can just stop that right up the butt of the hose. It's just a dead end. Or if you want, you can just take your hose like this and you can just bend it over once like that. And when it's bent over once, you can just put a wrap of tape around it and it'll stop dripping right there. The hose will expand and contract a little bit in heat and cold. And so if you want it to stay really straight in your bed, which can be a little tough because it might wrinkle a bit, you can have a garden stake like that, which will just hold the drip line down. And if you want to anchor it to the wooden garden bed in any way, any of the lines, you could just use a little half-inch PVC coupling like that. And with a little wood screw like that, you could just anchor it down. So that's all the parts and pieces you need. It's not difficult. And here's the other really cool thing. I've bought the drip line like this. It's in a coil. This is kind of the minimum increment that you can buy half-inch drip line where I go to. You can go to a home improvement store or maybe an irrigation store, a garden supply center. And half-inch drip line like this cost me under $50. The non-perforated, no drip line in it, just the header line, only costs $15. With the pressure reducer and all the different parts and pieces, the entire project for this bed will be about $100. If you have to buy this tool because you don't have it yet, you might end up as high as $150 with all the different parts and pieces and connectors and couplings and everything like that. We're going to put in 100 feet of line, which is a bit over 30 meters. I'll talk feet just for a second, because each of these beds that we've done is 12 feet long or about 4 meters. This is kind of cool to realize. This is a 100-foot roll. 2 of the beds are going to have 3 lines each, so 36 feet in one bed, 36 feet in the other bed. That's 72 feet altogether, right? Then there's a third bed, which we did a little narrower in the landscape ties. We're going to put the biggest plants in that narrow landscape tie bed. It's only going to have 2 rows of drip line, so 2 12s, which would be 24 feet. Add the 24 feet to the previous 72 feet. How much did you get? 96 feet. How much did we get in a roll? 100 feet. So a 100-foot roll is going to do all 3 garden beds with theoretically 4 feet left over. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So not very expensive. When you look at how we're doing it, it's going to be cheaper than buying a sprinkler and a garden hose, and it's going to work for years and years and years and years, and you'll save so much water. You won't be watering any weeds either. Really fun to set up drip line irrigation. So I've started out laying out the irrigation at the last bed where the water is going to stop. That's the dead end of the header line. So you can see I've put out a measuring tape, I've measured the center of the bed, I've decided I want my middle of 3 taps on the bed to be there, and 1 equidistant on each side from it. And so I've gone with solid line as my header line, put in a T, always had a coupling on in each case, and I've just put a little piece of solid line here about 6 inches long, so if something breaks I could reconnect it. Goes all along. Now it's not a hot day today, so this stuff still just came off a circular roll, so it's not flexing super nicely, so it's a little curvy, but you can see they're not pointing up crazy and they're not pointing down crazy. They're just flat and ready. Now I can just put my drip line down each of the ends of the beds. When I'm getting to this end of the bed right here, I've put a 90 on it, and that 90 is ready to go down to the ground and then scooch over to the next bed where I'll continue the header line on, and then to the bed prior to that. So we're just setting it up that way. Okay, so we've got all the irrigation ready to roll. What I want you to realize, because all the lines that are header lines are not perforated with no drip, every one of these taps is running independently if water's coming into the pressure reducer. So I've got 3 taps in this bed, 3 taps in that bed, 2 taps in this bed for a total of 8. Now there is enough power, I can run all 8 at once. I can run all 8 at once if I want to, there's enough pressure. But if I only wanted to water this row, or just that row, or just that bed, I would only turn on those specific taps, okay? So every tap will independently water whatever row I want it to. So that's a good thing to note, okay? So again, the pressure reducer is here with the garden hose coming in. So if I turn off the garden hose, that's how I turn off my whole irrigation system. With the exception of 1 or 2 drips, there's really no water loss, but it's not worth leaving it pressurized all the time. Now remember what I told you before? This here is a filter that removes. When you unscrew that, you can clean it out at any time. So now I just want to take you in on a close-up zoom to let you see the drips dripping out of the drippers. Every 30 centimeters or every 12 inches there's a dripper here, and we'll just zoom in the camera so you can see what happens when we pressurize a line, okay? So when we're going to be ready to plant, we'll just remove all these coffee sacks and do that. But for now, just to show the drip line turning on. So here we're just going to turn the tap on, and immediately you can see the drip starting to drip right there, right? There's another one here, every 30 centimeters. And remember how much that's going to do? 1 gallon or 4 liters every hour. So that's going to slowly soak into the soil, and now you've got targeted water. Now realize that as the water goes in, the longer you leave your tap on and the drip happens, the more the water spreads under the soil surface. So the baby roots of the plant will extend out to where the water is, and they'll access it. And basically, these 2 drips that are this far apart on the surface, that water is actually traveling underground to meet. It only has to travel 6 inches or 15 centimeters for that water to travel, and it'll do that within less than an hour. So if you've turned it on for an hour, everything is soaked underneath the surface of the soil. And that's it. We're off. No more irrigation. So simple. A friendly little helper when you're connecting your solid header line to your pressure reducer is to use a little bit of plumber's tape. Very thin type of Teflon tape. When it goes over the threads and you thread things together, it just ensures there's no lip leaks or drips anywhere there. So it just does a little better job of tightening things up rather than just having plastic threads going into plastic threads. Put that over the threaded area. Just keeps you a little more drip free. Okay, so that concludes this chapter of the drip irrigation part of Backyard Abundance. We've got about 30 meters, close to 100 feet of drip line out. We've got a header line that runs from the pressure reducer to all the beds, an independent tap for each line that runs down each bed. It's all connected with couplings and a crimper. For me to do all of this, I have done it before, I acknowledge. I had all the supplies and showed you what I had ready to go at the start of the video. It took me just under 2 hours start to finish, maybe an hour and a half. And I didn't take any breaks, I just booked through it. So about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours if you're poking along or you stop for a drink. But not a whole lot of time to now have permanent irrigation set up for all the beds. We're ready to plant now. Seeds and starts are next. That's what we're going to shoot for on the next part of Backyard Abundance.